Hi guys, it's Matt here from Brit vs Japan, and today I want to quickly talk about how to try and improve your reading skills in the beginning stages when it's quite difficult to do that. And I also want to quickly just say that reading a lot early on can be not very good for your language ability or your overall language ability, especially if you're going for like a high level native fluency like ability. Then it's usually recommended that you probably stay away from reading for maybe 6 months to even a year, maybe even more than that if you really want to perfect your accent, because reading earlier on has a detrimental effect to your accent in the respect that if you read too much and you don't do enough listening, then you start trying to guess how words sound when you are reading, and by doing that you can then pick up some sort of weird ways of pronouncing words based on your guesses of how words sound. So people like Matt vs Japan, he says, if you are aiming for that high level, then it's a good idea to not read for a long time. So just bear that in mind. If, however, you want to get into reading quickly and you don't worry too much about that kind of stuff, like I do, or like I did. I didn't really know about that when I first started doing it, but even if I did know about that, I wanted to learn Japanese, not necessarily to that high level, so I wouldn't have been too worried about that kind of thing, and I probably would have read quite early on when I did anyway. One thing I actually thought about a lot when I was first starting out was that I wasn't reading enough, and this was kind of ironic because in reality I did myself a favor by waiting, and I didn't actually read for quite a while, for a good few months. And even in my 6 months update video, I talked about reading and stuff and how I could read stuff. But even then, I hadn't actually read that much, if I remember correctly. And it wasn't until a few months after that I was really heavily reading Japanese. So reading Japanese is a huge thing. It is incredibly complicated. There are many different steps you have to take to be able to get to a level where you can read Japanese easily, and it's not as simple as just picking up a book and just reading and just trying to read, because you've got kanji and you've got kanji is the main thing really. You just can't read it because there's kanji there and you just don't know kanji. So unless you're a Chinese speaker or your native tongue or another language that uses the Chinese alphabet, syllabary, I don't know what you call it, Chinese writing system, unless you have that advantage, then you are going to need to learn kanji first, and by learning kanji first, it gives you kind of a bit of an advantage over someone who obviously doesn't, and there are some people that argue that you could learn kanji whilst learning how to read, and while I can also see people doing that and learning Japanese perfectly fine that way, I think it's personally easier just to get kanji out of the way first, and then start to read. That's just my take on it. That's what I did. I found it easier. You do what you do, if you think that learning it alongside reading is better, then go for it, test it, see how it works, and let us know. But so far what I've found and what other people have done is to learn kanji first and then do reading, and it's just been quicker overall. So to learn kanji, you can check out my video on it, on how to learn kanji using RTK. I also have a massive blog post on this. It's huge. It gives you everything you need to know about learning kanji, and so I won't go into it here, but I'll link both of those in the description below. And RTK is pretty much it's a book, and it's also a method in itself, and it gets you to the point where you can write kanji, which isn't necessarily that important at this stage, but it also gives you a understanding of each character's meaning. When I say understanding, what I mean is it gives you basically an English keyword per kanji. So when you see a kanji, you will automatically know what that kanji's keyword is, but that doesn't mean you know what it is in Japanese. And a lot of people that don't agree with this method, tend to argue that, just by doing RTK, you're not actually learning to read Japanese. And yes, they are totally correct. If you learn RTK, if you learn 3,000 kanji of RTK, yes, you won't be able to pick up a Japanese book and you won't be able to read it straight away, right, and understand everything. That is totally true, and that's totally fine. That's the whole point. What you do is you get a base of what kanji means. You get an idea, basically somewhere to start from, and then when you start reading, you can start picking up stuff, and you can start attaching it to what you already know. So if you say you know the kanji for cat, right? Most of the objects and stuff like this, like cat, dog, cow and stuff, the keywords are what they are. So when you see that in a Japanese sentence, you will automatically know that that's a cow or a dog or a cat, and you will instantly pick up how the word is said and how it's used in a sentence. Like, it will help you to understand the sentence's grammar. And not every keyword is perfect, but only a few are like that, not very many. And so even if you do have, a kanji with a weird keyword that you've remembered, if you see it in a word in a sentence and you kind of get the idea of what the sentence means, and you have that sort of base knowledge of a rough idea as to what the kanji means, then you have a good chance of being able to decipher the sentence and decipher what the word means. And that's pretty much what it is. It gives you a tool to be able to sort of break down kanji words and kanji themselves, and to be able to read a Japanese sentence. And it also gives you a base knowledge from which you can build off, because trying to learn everything about a kanji at once, the onyomi, the kunyomi, how it's written, and how you trying to actually be able to read it as a bunch of lines and squiggles. If you try to do that all at once, it's very, very intensive in your brain, and you're very unlikely to be able to remember everything. So the idea of RTK is to break it down. You learn the meaning, you learn the writing as well. Then when you read Japanese, that's when you learn how to actually read the word. Doing that, you pick up the kunyomi and onyomi readings, which, by the way, also has an advantage. You will never need to worry about kunyomi and onyomi. I don't know the difference. I'm happy to say that I don't know the difference. And I'm not ashamed to say that, because it just goes to show that it works. I don't have to worry about that at all when I'm thinking about saying stuff in Japanese. All I know is I want to say this word, and this is how you say it. And it just comes out. So it's not this huge deal where you have to learn all the readings of either of them, of both of them. Sorry, you just have to read a lot of Japanese, and it'll all come to you eventually. Okay, I'm kind of getting off topic here, and I'm sort of not quite off topic, but I'm getting into too much detail for this one video. So I'm going to get back to the point and just say that if you are looking into reading Japanese, then do read a lot of more information about how the written language is composed, and head over to my website and check out the other videos on this channel to get a better idea of what you should be doing and how you should be going about it. I'd also recommend checking out AJAT, alljapaneseallthetime.com, sorry. Matt vs. Japan, his YouTube channel is brilliant, and also Anti-Moon and Stephen Krashen, who's a linguist, if you're interested in the literature. But to put it simply, when you are learning to read, you need to have comprehensible input. So this is the same for when you're listening. Whenever you're getting any input from the language that you're trying to learn, you need to have that input comprehensible. And basically, what this means is, to be able to learn a language, you need to be able to first understand the message that's coming across. So what do we mean by this? Well, if someone hits their knee, for example, and hits it against a wall, and they shout, ouch, and say they shout that in Chinese, I don't know what it would be in Chinese, but they shout it in Chinese, and you've never heard this before in your entire life, but you see that they've hit their knee on the wall, right? And then they shout this word. Well, there's a good chance that word means ouch, right? It's a 99% chance that word is either a swear word or that it means ouch. So your brain picks that up. It remembers that. You then see a similar situation where someone else stubs their toe against, the wall as well, or they break their finger, for example. So you see another situation where a similar thing happens, and someone hits their toe. Maybe this time it's a child's program and it's aimed at children, therefore there would be no swearing. And you see the person say the same word again, or you hear them, sorry. Your brain will pick up on that. You'll realize that this word means ouch, and it will click. And you'll be like, oh, okay, that's what that means. This is essentially how language learning works, and it works for every single word, every single grammar structure. So the more input that you get, the higher chance there is that you will hear some input that's comprehensible to you. So the idea is, when you're reading, you need to read lots, and to easy content and to content that you find interesting. Essentially, what I'm going to be suggesting here is basically just getting Netflix and just watching a ton of Netflix with subtitles. So you go onto the Japanese version of Netflix by simply going to your settings and changing it to Japanese. And then when you go to, you can then search by subtitles and audio. I think if you scroll to the bottom of the website, and there's like a button that you can click, and then you can go onto there, and then you can search by audio and you can search by Japanese audio. So find shows that look interesting to you, maybe shows that you've already seen, maybe it's dubs of shows of some of your favorite shows. Check if they've got Japanese subtitles, and then just binge watch them. Like seriously, just sit down, watch tons and tons and tons of these shows with Japanese subtitles, reading the Japanese subtitles, and you'll be surprised as to how quickly your Japanese reading ability will skyrocket. It's kind of crazy. And the reason why I suggest this is because I can specifically remember in the first 6 months to a year of learning Japanese, at Christmas, when I came home from university, I came back home for a couple of weeks for my Christmas holidays. I can remember spending a good 2 to 3 weeks basically binge watching the entirety of Full Metal Alchemist, and which is an anime that's very famous in Japan. A lot of you probably heard of it. And I just binge watched the entire, God knows how many episodes there are of that show, all with Japanese subtitles. And by the time I finished watching that, I also watched a load of other stuff, but by the time I finished watching this, I could understand the majority of a Full Metal Alchemist episode. And when I say the majority, I mean just over 50%, So not much, but enough that I could get what was going on and I could actually enjoy the content. And that was a huge, huge step for me. And it was one of the moments that I realized that this works, and I just need to keep doing what I'm doing, and that I'll end up making a lot of progress. Obviously, what I didn't realize is doing all that reading, I probably didn't allow myself to produce a brilliant accent. However, it did really, really, really drastically increase my reading ability. And in some respects, also my listening ability, because what I would do, which I'll talk about this in another video as well, but I would take these episodes and I would convert them to an MP3 and put them on my phone and listen to them throughout the day over and over again on repeat. And I would pick out words that I'd seen and associate the kanji with these words as well. And I'd also sort of get a better understanding of the story that was going on and sort of pick up on more stuff that I might have missed when I watched it the first time. So that's another thing that I also recommend doing. And that's pretty much it, really. Like for this tactic anyway, just binge watch a lot of anime and binge watch a lot of dramas, and you'll get really good at reading. And it's the same for listening as well. Obviously with listening, what you have to do is turn off the subtitles. So it depends on what skill you want to increase. Recommend that you switch between the two. So don't always have JP subs on. But sometimes turn those subs off, as long as you're getting a lot of listening and a lot more listening in per day as you are reading. And it doesn't matter too much, but do make sure that you do get a healthy balance. Listening is far more important than reading is, because you're gonna need to have conversations with actual people, whereas reading, it's just a side thing that you don't, it's good to have, but it's not as important as listening, because listening also helps develop your speaking abilities. But yeah, that's it for this one, guys. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask me in the comment section below. If you like this video, then don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. If you found this video helpful and you want to support the channel, then you can check out my Patreon page. And I also have a website where I upload blog posts and other useful stuff about learning Japanese, which you can also check out. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. I also wanted to say a massive thank you to Diedrich, Eric, R, and everybody else who's been supporting me on Patreon and who has supported me on Patreon so far. You guys have just done amazing. Like, it's crazy how many people are supporting me on such a small channel and such a small kind of project. And I know that I don't put enough time into making videos and content on my website, and I feel really bad about that. However, I always make sure that I keep putting up content on my Patreon. So if you want to see more content, then definitely come over and check out the Patreon page. And this year, I will try to put out as much content as I possibly can. I am busy at university. I have coursework. I, have a lot of work to do, as a final year software engineering student, but I'm trying my best to do this on the side as well. And your support just means everything. It helps me pay my bills, and it helps me to, as I say, make more content. And yeah, it's awesome. And I love doing it. I love answering your questions, and I love helping you guys out. So thank you guys so much. And yeah, it's, I'm so grateful. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.